Alright, this is the third video for section 2 of chapter 7. We're going to be dealing with the second objective in this video. We're going to talk about polygenic traits, and we're also going to talk about the effect of environmental factors on phenotype. So first we need to know what a polygenic trait is. According to this definition up here, it's any kind of trait that's produced through interaction of two or more genes, two or more different genes. One example of a polygenic trait would be eye color. Before, we oversimplified things and we just talked about brown and blue eyes and how brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes. And so if you had both alleles, the brown would show up. Now, we all know that there are more than just brown eyes and blue eyes out there. There's also those green eyes, and those are also going to play effect. They're also going to be dominant to blue eyes, though brown eyes are going to be dominant to green eyes. That's what this is showing here. But there's also different genes that play an effect in this, and so you can end up with hazel eyes like mine. That's kind of a combination between brown and green. But basically, this stuff's a little bit more complicated than what we can probably do at this point, so we're just not going to worry about it too much. The kind of polygenic trait that I do need you to understand is this epistasis example. So this is for lab color, and by lab I mean Labrador retrievers, the dogs. So we all know that there are different colors of labs. There are black labs. There's a key down at the bottom here. There are brown labs. There are yellow labs. And there are white labs. But this whole coloring issue comes about through two different genes. The first gene is represented by the E. So you have a dominant version and a recessive version. But as you can see down below in that key, the capital E, the dominant version, is what brings about the darker coat color. So black and brown are darker than yellow and white, and that's because that E is dominant and it makes it dark. The other gene that's represented with B, again, dominant recessive, is going to determine whether or not you have black or brown or yellow or white as a secondary effect here. So what we're going to do is cross two heterozygous parents for those traits. So both of those parents, in this case, would be black, considering there's at least one dominant allele for each gene, which according to this key down here says that it's going to be black for sure. So I have two black labs that are both heterozygous that are being crossed here, and I'm going to try and figure out exactly what possible outcomes you can get from those two black labs. So in order to do this, I can do a dihybrid cross from last chapter where you had that big 16 square Punnett square, but I'm actually going to do it a little bit differently this time, since we found out in those blood types that we can combine two different probabilities to make one, and that actually simplifies things a little bit. That's what we're going to do instead. So first we're going to cross the E's in one Punnett square from the two parents, and then in another Punnett square we're going to cross those B's. So remember, both parents were heterozygous, so both of these Punnett squares are going to end up being monohybrid crosses. So you fill out to find out all these different possibilities. And then I'm supposed to look at, excuse me, I made a mistake there. I'm supposed to look at these two Punnett squares and come up with a probability for some outcome, whatever it may be. So the question I'm asking here is, what is the probability that an offspring for these two black labs is going to be yellow? Now you're going to use that key down at the bottom to try and figure this out. and you're going to have to combine two different probabilities to get this answer. But you should be able to do what you need to do when it's all said and done. So the first thing I need to know is that in order to be yellow, I have to be homozygous recessive for that E trait. So in this first Punnett square, there's only one of those possibilities out of 4. So my first fraction that I'm going to use is a 1 in 4. Next, I'm looking to see if I have that dominant or recessive B allele. According to the key down here, I need to have at least one dominant allele. So that means that all 3 of these possibilities will work for that. And I'm going to get a 3/4 probability from that Punnett square for that trait. But again, I need to combine these 2 genes. It's the interaction between these 2 genes that leads to that yellow coloring. So I need to combine these 2 fractions by multiplying. 1 times 3 on the top is going to stay 3. 4 times 4 on the bottom is going to give me a 16. That fraction will not reduce. So I know my answer now. 3 out of every 16 puppies between those 2 black parents that were heterozygous are going to be yellow. So you could also look for the probabilities, how many are going to be white, how many are going to be brown, how many are going to be black. All possibilities could show up from this example, but we're just going to deal with the yellow right now, and you can figure out the other ones on your own.